Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Money Matters Top Tips for Success, where each and every day I bring on new business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and have them share their top tips for success with you. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today's a very special episode. It's one of our reunion 2020 episodes. That's where I bring on a guest that I had on in the past that I'd had so much fun with them. I had to drag them back into another podcast. Today I have on the show Shawn Sheikh, who is a co-founder and managing partner over at Pivot CMO. Shawn, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So a couple of our topics today, we're going to get into using paid media to grow your business, marketing and scaling businesses, and I'm excited to get into these topics because you're definitely an expert in these fields. But before we do that, I don't want to assume everybody that's listening heard your first episode, so give them a quick overview of what you're doing over at Pivot CMO to help your clients.
Yeah, sure, and thanks for the good intro, by the way. So at Pivot CMO, we're really helping companies grow, whether that be really early stage, so pre-revenue or zero revenue companies, all the way to companies that are doing, millions of dollars in revenue. At any stage, we're helping with growth strategy, implementation of growth. For some companies, we're going in as CMO or head of growth, kind of like outsourced. We buy a lot of ads on behalf of our clients, but overall, basically whatever it takes to help a company grow at whatever stage. And typically speaking, we'll stay on with our clients for a pretty long time until they're ready to kind of bring things in-house and help train their in-house staff. But really the key is to grow revenue as quickly as possible for these companies, and just get them in a place where, their business is doing well. And for startups, sometimes we'll help with fundraising and things like that. For other companies, we'll do some strategic planning for financing or inventory, things like that. But really anything as it pertains to growth.
I think that's a great transition, too. Let's get into paid media and using that to grow your business.
Sure, that sounds good.
So that being said, small businesses, obviously, some have complex paid media strategies. Some haven't really even put their feet in the water yet, or dipped their toe in the water, I should say, yet. What are some steps that you think businesses should think about when going the paid media route or finally exploring that?
Yeah, so a couple of mistakes that I see really early on is just not having the proper knowledge or the proper setup or even the proper person kind of running paid media. And also just like the understanding of what it means to do these things and what metrics are associated with it. So even if you are going to bring on an outside person like an agency or a freelancer or something like that to do, your paid channels, whether it be like Facebook or Google or nowadays like Amazon and Pinterest, I think it's really important to educate yourself a little bit. There are plenty of courses on platforms like Udemy where, they're $5 or $10, and you can really understand how these platforms work and the metrics that you'll need to measure. And then I would go and find somebody that's really knowledgeable. Here we do some coaching. We also, act as an outsourced kind of ad buyer for most companies, most of our clients. But I think it's important that you put the right person in place when you're going to go about doing these things, because you are deploying capital, right? So anytime you're spending money, you want to make sure you're doing it right. There are scenarios where clients will come to us and they spent, a couple $100 or a couple $1,000, and it was really wasted because they just didn't know what they were doing or they didn't do it right. So really they just lit money on fire. So, I think education is the most important part. And then just hiring the best person for the job is really, really important because, the outcome can be really different with the same amount of money.
Nobody wants to light money on fire. That's I hate to hear those stories when somebody wasted a large budget and didn't really see any return on that. That being said, there's a lot of talk about what platform to use for what. Should businesses be platform agnostic, or let me rephrase that. What should their overall view be on platforms and where to spend their ad dollars? What's a good approach for it?
Yeah, so I hear often companies say, hey, we're B2B, so Facebook doesn't work, or hey, we're B2C, so, Google might not work. The fact of the matter is a lot of the platforms will work. It just depends on what scale It also depends on just what makes sense in terms of the demand. So you can think about a platform like Google as really high intent, meaning you're just filling the demand that people already have for a product or a service. So for example, if you're searching for like, low calorie cereal bar or something like that, then the chances you're looking to buy a low calorie cereal bar is really high. It's just that there are only a certain number of people looking for that, every day or every month or at any given moment of time. So there's a certain amount of demand and you can go in and fill it with your ads. So that's really fine. We look at platforms like Facebook as demand generation, meaning when someone sees an ad, they're discovering a product for the first time usually, and the prospecting or the amount of people that can discover things it seems almost limitless. So that's where you're going to get a lot of scale. Now, Google, you can have probably smaller testing budgets, but the potential to scale is a lot less, meaning if you spend a lot of time on it, you might not be able to, grow revenue like crazy, whereas Facebook, the upfront cost might be a little bit more, but if you get something to work, you can scale really aggressively. So a good example is we took a client from 0 to 100K a month in spend within like a month and a half on Facebook. And on Google, like it took us about 3 or 4 months to get to the same place, just because it's harder to find keywords and things like that. The last thing I'll say is I think between B2C or B2B, both platforms work. There are companies that come to us that say, hey, we only want to do Google because we're B2B, we do Google, it works okay. We go to Facebook and we absolutely crush it. I think it's more so understanding like your audience and then making sure your like conversion funnel is really good from when someone goes from, clicking an ad to your site to, converting either into a lead or a purchase or, whatever your conversion event is.
Man, I love that you say that, and that's why I asked you that question, because I needed somebody to dispel that myth. So I didn't want to tee up the question wrong and show my bias, but every time I hear somebody say, yeah, we do this platform because of X, Y, Z, whether it's the B2B or B2C thing, the first thing I say is, so have you done any advertising, or have you actually explored that? And normally 9 times out of 10 it's no, but we know we're not supposed to, and I'm like, okay, so the answer is you don't actually know, you just made that up. I love it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I laugh partially, but in the other part, it's like it is that double-edged sword. They do need an expert and somebody that actually understands the platform. If the person you're working with specializes in Google and they haven't really explored Facebook, or vice versa, you can't just add that as an add-on if they don't really have that expertise. And that may be where some of the people that some of the clients may not understand that, right?
Yeah, it's like trading time for money, right? Like in order to really do it effectively, you got to put in a lot of time, and especially on these ad platforms, you end up spending money. So sometimes it's better to just spend money on, hiring somebody that's really good. You'll save a lot of time in terms of like testing. You'll probably end up saving a lot of money because the budget's just deployed a lot better. And
all of the above. It hurts. That time of thinking you're just going to go on there and because you put an ad on one thing, you could do it on another. It's not the way it works.
Exactly. That makes a lot of sense.
So let's talk a little bit more about, just scaling businesses in 2020. Any interesting kind of trends, methodologies, anything interesting that you're working on you care to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So, the traditional platforms are there. We are doing a lot of stuff on Facebook, a lot of stuff on Google. Some of the other platforms who are more top of funnel that are really cheap are like Snapchat and TikTok. We're doing some top of funnel there where we buy really cheap traffic and then we do a lot of retargeting on Facebook. So that's been really interesting these days because especially for businesses with higher budget, where they're running out of like audience on Facebook, we can go buy really cheap audiences elsewhere and then, use Facebook's really good data sources for retargeting. So that's one thing. The second thing that's been really interesting for us is we've been really using LinkedIn to sell for our clients these days. It kind of started as something that we were doing internally for ourselves, no ad spend, just a really good, slightly automated, slightly manual outreach strategy that we've kind of systemized, and it's something that we're helping clients with now. And that's working really well for them, especially if you're semi B2B or you have a product that's at least, $500 or $1,000 a month. It's a great way to get in, 50 or 60 phone calls and then, convert some customers, with relatively low spend it's no ad spend at all, actually. But, the other thing that it helps with is we get a lot of phone calls with potential affiliates, partners, and just good people in general. What I've noticed is these days, a lot of business owners are just not talking to enough people in their industry. So that's something that we're really excited about, and we're leveraging LinkedIn to really build relationships and help companies grow as well.
Man, that's exciting. So, Shawn, if somebody is listening to this and they want more information on Pivot CMO or to connect, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, sure. One of two ways. You can go to our website, pivotcmo.com, pivotcmo.com, or you can shoot me an email. I try my best to answer all of them. I get a ton, but I do answer all the emails that I do get. It's just Shawn, SHAWN, at pivot, pivotcmo.com. And reach out to anybody on our team as well, even if you're curious about coming into the industry or working in the industry, or you're interested in helping your company grow, reach out to us. Promise we won't try to sell you anything more. We love founders and we love to talk about the journey of growth. So happy to be helpful in any way.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, hey, Shawn, really appreciate you coming on the show today. As always, lots of fun talking to you and having you on. And in my mind, I'm like, once you said TikTok, I'm like, oh, I downloaded that last weekend and I swear I lost a whole afternoon just scrolling or swiping up or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I was probably some of your cheap ad spend there. So I helped with your traffic there. That's awesome.
There you go.
It's just a whole nother thing to learn. Lots of fun though. So thanks again for coming on the show. And to the audience, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes store, do all those great things we do to support our podcast, which I really do appreciate it. And Shawn, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.